Time for the Beer, Wine, and Spirit Show with Rob Mellion. Brought to you by the Massachusetts Package Stores Association. Right here on 1480 WSAR and 95.9 FM Fall River. To join the conversation, call 508-673-1480. That's 508-673-1480.
All right. Hello, Massachusetts, and hello to all of those retailers of beer, wine, and spirits across this state and across the country who listen to the Beer, Wine, and Spirits Show. And it is amazing because during the course of the week, I run into some of you across the state. Some of you are emailing us, and at the same time, you're calling us and you're texting us, and it is just amazing. I'm really, really humbled at how many folks listen to the show. It's your show. It's your Beer, Wine, and Spirits Show. My name is Rob Mellion, and I am the Executive Director and General Counsel to the Massachusetts Package Stores Association. This is the group that represents local retailers of beer, wine, and spirits all across this state, Massachusetts. And, you know, I say local for a reason because I don't know if you know, but the large out-of-state corporate groups, they're not members of our association. It's really, you know, your local store who's a member, and there are hundreds of them all across the state, and it's a lot of fun. So here we go. Let's get into this. We are going to today, I think, talk about a very important topic. I say this because I wear a couple of hats as executive director to the Massachusetts Package Store Association. In addition to being an attorney and a lobbyist on behalf of local retailers, I also serve as administrator to the alcohol beverage training course that many of the stores across this state use in order to train their employees on how to safely serve the public. And I actually, we typically do about a training a month, sometimes a couple of trainings in the course of a month. And even through COVID, we've been doing a lot of virtual training through COVID. And actually, I'm really excited because I'm going to be doing a in-person training in November, finally. But I bring this up because the issue of fake IDs, it's serious. And you've got to be on guard. You must be on guard against these fake IDs because they're good. And they have proliferated. And if you don't have a system, then it is likely you will inadvertently serve a minor. And folks, it's strict liability. The act of serving the minor is the crime. And you are, as we say in law, SOL. So, statute of limitation, not the other one. No, you don't have a statute of limitation. You are actually the other SOL. You're really in deep trouble. But there are things you can do. And one of them is to have systems in place. And today we're going to talk with somebody who knows all about those types of systems because he's the CEO of IntelliCheck. And I'm talking about Bryan Lewis. And IntelliCheck is a great service. I have actually used IntelliCheck as a tool of gatekeeping against illegal sales for at least the last 3.5 years. I've been familiar with the product and have actually incorporated into our training course that we teach to people. I thought it was really important to bring Bryan in and to talk with him, with all of you, about fake IDs and how to stop them from being used and to, have systems in place in your stores. Because if you don't, like I said, you're in deep trouble. So, Bryan, thank you so much for taking time. You are a very busy person. Your company is outstanding, and you have helped a lot of stores across this country prevent illegal sales. Welcome to the Beer, Wine, and Spirits Show. Are you there? Let's see. Let's try that again. Are you there, Bryan?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Very good. There we go. There we go. So.
All right. Perfect. Well,
how was that for an intro?
Because it's
yeah. How was that for an intro? Because it's the absolute truth. I am a big fan of IntelliCheck.
I'm glad to hear that. Glad to hear that. Yeah, I think we've got a great product. Helps keep a lot of establishment owners out of trouble. and more importantly, adolescents from getting access to things that they shouldn't. And, we consider that, sort of a noble cause, if you will.
Yeah, well, they're trying. So what is going on with this proliferation of fake IDs?
Well, the problem is they're just so easy to get, and they make it so that you want to get your friends involved. If we look at the websites to see what's out there, what they have, and these folks are good. Like within 30 days of, say, a real ID coming out or a new format, they've got them online and they're selling them. And as I said, they want you to get your friends, because if you buy just for yourself, it's $200. If you get another friend, it drops to $80 each. Yep. You get 3 more friends, and they drop to $70. So they're easy to get. You go online, you get a photo, you sign your name, you pick your state, and you'll get it in a couple of weeks in the mail.
That is insane. And we're going to talk about this in depth because it's frustrating. Law enforcement really can't do very much about it as far as getting those fake IDs. Because, why don't you talk to this one? Where are these IDs coming from?
The vast majority are coming from China.
Yeah.
And we know that from, looking at the websites. And then also, the Border Patrol has been pretty good. And they catch sometimes, a small portion of them. But when they do, they're, 16,000 at a time that they'll catch them, coming into airports and things. So it is widespread. After my kids were of age, they admitted, oh, yeah, everybody in my fraternity or sorority had them. It's one of those things. It's sort of part of pledging is getting these things. And younger, people are doing it now, even as early as high school. Because when you buy it, it's not like it comes in the mail as like, here's your fake ID. They're sewn inside teddy bears or in the lining of cheap purses, so it looks like you bought merchandise. You slice it open and you get it, so parents really wouldn't know that this was just delivered to their house.
And I think it's important for people to realize. I do the same thing. I check pretty much about twice a month. I check on the web. I do a kind of a query. Best fake ID, and you'll get the 10 best. It's always the same companies, but they keep changing their website address so that, you can't quite, follow them, but you can. I mean, it's pretty easy to follow them. But, in talking with our ABCC here in Massachusetts, really not much that they can do because it's out of their jurisdiction. And it's a big frustration issue. States can't go after these out of country because, as you said, China's a big one, Russia's another, and India's another. And not much you can do about it. How's COVID added to the problem of underage drinking?
Well, it hit it 2 ways, really. One is, kids suffered from the same depression and loneliness that a lot of other people did. So they started drinking a lot more, and and 2 studies show this. Both were led by Pennsylvania State University, in addition to some other universities. So a lot more kids started drinking during the lockdown, the pandemic. A third of the kids under 20 admitted to binge drinking. And sort of the scary bit is 26% of them said that they got it from their parents. Now, another study shows that a lot more parents during the lockdown allowed their adolescent children to drink at home. Actually, 1 in 6 allowed their kids to drink at home. The real problem with that is, this study further showed that when kids were allowed to drink at home, they were more likely to transition very quickly to binge drinking, going from that first drink to drinking 5 or more at a time, or admitting to drinking very heavily over the past year.
More than once a week, too. I mean, that.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's sort of, the same kind of sadness and pressures, they saw maybe, what other people were doing. They turned to alcohol. The real problem is we know what alcohol does if you are, your body's still forming, it's not a good thing to do. Studies show that if you start drinking, at age 13, you're 4 times more likely to become dependent upon alcohol, in addition to, the risky behaviors that it leads to and, other cognitive issues that, alcohol can have on a developing body and mind. So it's kind of its own little pandemic.
So you got youth drinking more. They got easy access to fake IDs. Any impact associated with drinks coming to the house now with drinks to go? Has that made things easier too for access?
Oh yeah, especially I had some friends send me some gifts of alcohol, and in this contactless world, so much of it was just dropped off on my porch without ever looking at who was being delivered to. And again, more and more things are being delivered. How much are they really checking? Are they required to check? Whose liability is it? So, yeah, very, you don't have to worry about walking into the store if you can get it sent right to your house, and they're just going to drop it off on your doorstep.
Brian, thank you for saying it. I'm the paid lobbyist. I've been saying this to the legislature till I'm blue in the face since basically April of this year. Stuff is getting delivered to people's houses, and they're not checking. And in addition to that, they're not necessarily checking with the right stuff. And I want to talk about that when we come back from our first break. I want to talk about you guys and why you guys are the right stuff for people to be using to stop these illegal sales. But let's take our first commercial break, and we'll be right back after these quick messages.
It's the biggest investment you'll ever make. Your home. I'm Stephen Gasquet with Real Estate Today.
Saturdays 11 to 1 and Sundays 9 to 11. Sponsored by Cabinet Design and Outlet, your premier source for quality wholesale kitchen and bathroom cabinetry and hardware. 2241 GAR Highway, Swansea. And by TA Restaurant, serving outstanding Portuguese cuisine. Family owned and operated since 1980. 408 South Main Street, Fall River.
Are all financial advisors the same? Hi, this is Richard Bassett from J. Marshall Associates. People are different, advisors are different. JMA looks at your present situation from the outside in to see where you are financially now and how to get to where you want to be in the future.
The Financial Planning Hour, Mondays 1 to 2 on WSAR, presented by J. Marshall Associates. Securities and advisory services offered through Cetera Advisors, LLC, member FINRA SIPC. Cetera is under separate ownership from any other named entity.
Today, we celebrate another essential worker, the human services worker. These are the unsung heroes delivering meals to shut-ins, providing personal care in the home, staffing homeless shelters, providing therapy in the home, and so much more. They are absolutely essential to those who depend on them, and so they've showed up and soldiered on every single day of the pandemic because they know someone is relying on them. If you're a human services worker, thank you. And if you know a human service worker, thank them for all of us.
All right, welcome back to the Beer, Wine, and Spirits Show. So Bryan Lewis, the CEO of IntelliCheck, is our guest for the hour, and we were just talking before the first set of commercials about this proliferation of fake IDs out there, and with the ease of access of alcohol, we've created a perfect storm. But there are things that stores can do to prevent illegal sales. And I say this because if you're not, you are opening up the door to a violation. And a violation for a store typically means it's going to be closed. And, do you really want to be closed for 3 days? Do you want to not get your license renewed next year? These are the things that can happen. And then there's jail time, too, for the employees. First offense, you're looking at up to a year in jail. First offense, along with, the fines are nothing. And then there's the, I say the fines are nothing because a year in jail. And then on top of that, you're looking at, for additional liability, the tort liability that can come with an illegal sale. And that's when you got gross negligence involved, and it can be bad, very bad. So, Brian, IntelliCheck. Who is IntelliCheck, and how did you get into the business of creating software that IDs folks?
We actually started off doing it for the military and secure government facilities because they thought the best way to make sure that you are who you say you are before they let you into the base or whatever it was, is to make sure that your government-issued ID was real. So we started off with military IDs and then began working with the states, the state DMVs through AMVA, to help them when they moved to barcodes from magnetic stripe to make sure that they got the barcodes right. So that gave us really unique insight into the barcode, the hidden features of all the barcodes in all the different states, because no state has the same format. So that's what gives us the ability to tell you with near certainty that the license is real. And I say near certainty, but one of the stats I'd like to point out is that before the New York State DMV gave our product to their law enforcement officers and the New York State Liquor Authority, to test us, they ran over 1,000 fakes against our system, and we caught every single one of them. So we're very, very good at what we do.
How are you catching them? What does IntelliCheck scan?
Just the barcode on the back, and we'll return the result sub-second. And I think the real important thing that many people miss is there's a very big difference between scanning and authenticating, because AMVA has a standard format that they publish. And for the most part, that's what the bad guys put on the back. They encode the name, the address, date of birth, all those things, using the AMVA format. So a typical scanner will read it because it's in a known format and it will present the information. Hate to crack on the government, but the FDA put together an app that they wanted to give to vaping stores to stop it. I downloaded the app. I've yet to find a fake that it can catch because, again, it's just scanning and looking for information like the name. But Massachusetts is a very, very different format than that AMVA format. And we would know with exact certainty what the Massachusetts format is with the hidden security features for the date that the license is issued. And that's what the bad guys don't know. And it's near impossible to reverse engineer it. So that's why we can just, again, you scan the back of the license. We're going to tell you if the license is good, bad, or expired, and that, they're 18 or 21 and, allowed to purchase the product that they want.
So if someone, there are stores out there to this day, and I run across them now and again, where they don't use a scanning device at all. They're like, I look at the ID, I look at the person, and I'm good. What do you have to say to that store?
I would say that every single one of our law enforcement agencies, and we've got, I think over 65 now, that use our product, use it because they tell us these fakes are so good. They're trained law enforcement. They still can't tell them apart. I recently was given a fake, a fake real ID, for my state, which I put right next to my license. And, my wife and friends sat around and we were looking at it, trying to find the differences. And the only thing was a very, very slight difference in color, which could be attributed to, the license sat in the sun. So these fakes have all the holograms. They've got all the micro printing. They've got everything in there. The bad guys, as you said, mostly India, China, Russia, have the plastic down. They understand exactly what's in it.
They even, Brian, have the laser perforations. I mean, it is crazy.
Oh, yeah.
It is crazy.
Like the raised printing that California has for the birth date.
We have it too in Massachusetts on the new ones. Yep. We have raised printing, and we also have engraved printing that's along where, like, the jawline on the picture. And they've got it too.
Mm-hmm. And even the plastic, like some states have special plastic that, that will have, you can see through it or you bend it and they'll do certain things. They advertise it's exactly what they've got because you got to figure most of this stuff is, the raw materials made over there anyway.
Yeah. And I just want folks to know, I saw they were running a special on it, two for $120 bucks.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And that's for a Massachusetts fake ID. And they're perfect. I mean, there's no way you're going to know. No way you're going to know.
Yeah. Not at all. Not at all.
So, in your opinion, someone's really they're exposing themselves to risk if they're not doing an extra layer of checking.
Oh, I think absolutely they are, and certain municipalities or places are getting it. You know, like Oxford, Mississippi, they've got an ordinance that you have to have a device. The state of Mississippi, for delivery of alcohol, they now require the companies that are delivering it to have a device that the Mississippi ABC approves because they set a standard. It has to catch at least 95% of the fakes that they use to test the product. Utah has required now, they really want to crack down on vaping. They're requiring that anybody who sells any kind of tobacco product, you have to have a device to scan and authenticate the license. And all of them are doing it because they realize the fakes are too good.
Now, here in Massachusetts, and I know it's the same in many other states, there's sort of like a three-pronged standard essentially put out by the ABCC. One, you have to check the ID. This is in order to have a reasonable reliance defense. So one, you have to check the ID. Two, you need to check the person, and verify that the person is the person on the ID. And obviously, it's got to be one of the 6 forms of ID that are acceptable in Massachusetts. And, I can go through that very quickly. It's a mass ID, it's a mass driver's license, it's a mass liquor purchasing ID card that nobody ever sees anymore because the mass ID is actually cheaper than the liquor purchasing card. Passports from anywhere in the world. I love that one. And passport card, and then military ID cards, and they're fun too. But those are your 6 forms of ID that are acceptable here. And like I said, it's a 3-pronged situation. It's got to meet those requirements. So I guess, I asked that question because, you got to match the person and the ID. So how have you incorporated a method of matching the person with the ID?
It depends on if you're in person or if you're ordering something remotely. Because a lot of times
in person, so at the store. Let's deal with that.
Yeah. So you can. One of the settings that you can choose is you check something that says once the ID's been verified that yes, I looked at the person and compared it to the license. That's the only way to really do it. It's almost the honor system because there's no physical way for us to make sure that the person selling the drink or the bottle was actually did it, other than they have to check that box. It can be something that's forced.
Right. What about biometrics? How does that work?
Yeah, so if you are remote, what we can do is it's a 3-step approach. And if somebody is ordering something online or they call in to order it, you can send a text to the phone, which then kicks off the process of let's scan the back of the license, make sure that it's real, take a photo of the front, and then we can make sure that what's printed on the front matches what's on the back, what we've pulled out of the authenticated barcode. And now we have the picture from the license. And then the next step is take a quick selfie. Basically put your head in an oval that shows up on your phone in the camera, and it watches for movement and then snaps the photo with movement, so we know that it is not a picture of a picture, and then compares that to the photo, and we make sure it's the same person.
Wow, that's pretty cool. That's actually really amazing because, I think about that for the implications. You having that component, I can see how that could be potentially usable for curbside delivery. I can see how that is potentially available also for use with going to a person's home and delivering. And I want to talk about that when we come from break, because that's, one of the results of COVID is how we've changed the way that people are receiving alcohol, and the industry has to change too, and the way that we gatekeep has to change. So let's do that. Let's take that quick break, and we'll be right back after these very, very quick messages.
Boston Red Sox baseball on FM 95.9, AM 1480 WSAR. Brought to you by Somerset Liquors. It's where you'll get neighborly attention and quality spirits priced right. The Fall River Community Development Agency, revitalizing neighborhoods, one property at a time. Call 508-679-0131 today. Hit a grand slam with Bearing Star Insurance. Contact us for your personal and business insurance needs today. BearingStar.com. Riverside Art, your one-stop shopping experience for scanning, printing, and framing services. Serving the community since 1963. Located on Route 6 in Somerset. Visit RiversideArt.com. And by Spindle City Auto Glass, 483 Bedford Street. They're the home of that Spindle shine. The Boston Red Sox on FM 95.9, AM 1480, WSAR.
Don't go alone in your job search. It's time to get to know Express Employment Professionals. Find a location near you at expresspros.com. No fees for job seekers. expresspros.com.
Tune in every Saturday morning from 9 to 11 for All About Cars with your host, Ralph Medeiros of Ralph's Auto Center in New Bedford. Ralph Medeiros has been in the automotive business for decades and wants to share his knowledge with you. Learn about the latest automotive trends and how to find the best value while shopping for a car. Ralph will provide you with cost-efficient solutions, honest answers, and advice. All About Cars with Ralph Medeiros every Saturday morning from 9 to 11 on 1480 WSAR.
Fisher Bus is open for business. After each trip, buses are thoroughly cleaned and sanitized. If you need transportation for your school or business, Fisher Bus uses late model school buses and luxury motor coaches. They offer small and large motor coaches and a trolley for weddings. Think Fisher for field trips, company functions, sporting events, and airport rides. Safe, comfortable, and affordable. Fisher Bus is also hiring. Visit FisherBusInc.com. Fisher Bus. Tell us where and we'll get you there.
That is the Prohibition Blues. I love that song. You have no idea. All right, we are back at the Beer, Wine, and Spirits show. I am amazed. It goes by so fast. I wait all week to do the show because it's so much fun to do, and it slips away. I can't believe we're already at the third quarter of the show. So our guest today is Bryan Lewis. He's the CEO of IntelliCheck, and I know how easy it is to use, Bryan, but maybe you should express to all those retailers out there just how easy your product is and how versatile it is to use.
It's very simple. It's just an app. The majority of our clients use just an app downloaded onto their phone or a tablet. You open up the app. You don't have to focus. You don't have to do anything. It turns your phone into a scanner, and you just wave the scanner portion over that barcode. We read it, and in generally sub-second, you're going to get a response back that's color-coded for you, red, yellow, green, with the information of, it is, a fake ID. It's an expired ID. If it's yellow, green, it means it's good, and the age of the person, so you know what it is you can be selling them. For, larger implementations or, bigger stores, we can very easily be integrated into the point-of-sale system. So the same scanning gun that they're using to ring up the merchandise can then also scan the license and let you know, again, is it real, is it expired, or is it a fake? But if you can take a picture on an iPhone or an Android, you can easily use this app.
And I can say this with certainty because if you went to the Beer, Wine, and Spirits Industry Experience last week, then you know, because we used IntelliCheck for every person who entered Lombardo's. Every person coming in, we checked them, and we actually caught, Bryan, we caught a few IDs.
Wow.
No kidding.
Well, it's good to know.
Yes. And, there's another feature to this, too, that I like. It also lets you know when someone's ID is expired.
Right.
It tells you a lot of things. What is some of the other information that the software helps provide to the person who's checking the IDs?
It's going to it'll show their name, it'll show their age, it'll show, that type of thing. So if they want to check it against the front of the license, just again, make sure it is what it is. And then, if the establishment wants, that can be saved in a secure manner on the phone. So if they're looking for the ability to, have some defense in case somebody wants to come in and like, are you really checking? They can have a record that they, in fact, did.
And that's actually really important. Thank you for raising that, because one of the most frustrating phone calls that I receive, and I receive them more frequently than I would like, is from either a store manager or the owner of a store when they're telling me, hey, Rob, I failed a compliance check. Do you know an attorney who can represent us? That's A, that I get from them. And B is, I ask them, well, did you, or the other phone call that I get is, I failed a compliance check, but I'm telling you, I did everything right. And then I ask them, well, what's your evidence? You're going to need direct evidence showing, because you're climbing your way out of strict liability here. So what's your evidence that you did everything right? And, and the answer back is, we don't keep records. Or, yeah, we have a camera system, but the camera system doesn't work. And, oh, by the way, we don't keep records. And I'm like, oh.
Yep.
And because, again, they're facing strict liability, and you're clawing your way out. So there is a feature, as you said, because I know it varies from state to state on what you can do and what you can't do. But here in Massachusetts, you can keep a record. And you got to be careful with that record, because you don't want to give away people's personal information. But it's critically important to have those records if you're going to be able to defend yourself. And
yeah, we strictly control, who can download the data. It's in an encrypted format that you need an encryption key to then, put it back into a format so that you can understand it. So it's pretty scrambled, because we certainly understand the implications of, PII getting out, and, we work. The other big portion of our business is working with banks to stop identity theft. So we definitely understand how to secure personal information.
Yeah, and again, I love the versatility to IntelliCheck. Today's package store, isn't like a store from 30 years ago. They do events, for example. And maybe you can share, because you sort of said it, but explain to people how this is a perfect tool for doing tastings, or it's a perfect tool for, when you're doing, I was at, for example, yesterday I was at a nonprofit who was doing an event, and of course they had some stores come in and providing, with the wholesalers providing the alcohol for the event. But, how can you use in a tasting type scenario your software to make sure that it's people of age who are tasting?
Yeah, we do that all the time. Like a town is going to throw an event, and they want to make sure, there's going to be alcohol there. We do a lot for concerts, and a lot of concert promoters use it sort of for one-time events, because it's that simple. You tell us how much you need to use, what are you going to do? We make it work for you. And if you need it for a weekend or a week or a month for some things that are going on, we can easily tailor it for that. And again, because there's no implementation or anything. You just go to the App Store, download it. We permission you so that you have access, and you're good to go. And when you're done, we just take the permission away until next year or next tasting or whatever it is. So we work, very closely with our clients to make sure that it works for them, because we all have the same goal, right, which is to keep kids safe.
Yeah, now, another issue here, and, it's interesting because I'm doing the show right now from Somerset, Massachusetts, which is in the southern part of Massachusetts, and it's very close to the Rhode Island border. And that's the thing about Massachusetts. Massachusetts is a state with five borders to other states. Even though Massachusetts is the only state in the country that does not allow out-of-state IDs to be relied upon, we are a state that's got, all of these states along our border here, and, it's just unrealistic to not accept sales from people from Rhode Island if you're in Somerset or in Fall River or, Swansea, Seekonk, for example. And then the same thing, if you're up north, how are you not going to accept a sale from New Hampshire or from Vermont? And the same thing in the West. How are you not going to accept a sale from New York or from Connecticut? You need a tool here. What do you do? What do you provide, to give the stores some assurance that the ID that they are checking is good ID from another state?
We cover all the states, all the state IDs, the state driver's licenses. We cover Canada. We cover Mexico. So we can cover anybody who's coming in if you're talking about licenses and things. And I think you make also a really good point, because most kids who want to do this, why would you get your own state ID? Pretend you're visiting, because I've lived in New York for New Jersey almost my whole life, but worked in New York. I can't tell you what a New York license looks like. So how are you going to be able to tell if it's real or not? I think a lot of people, they got those books that they rely on and the pictures, but again, I'll go right back to the premise. You can't tell just by looking at it, and I think this is a case where the law has not kept up with technology, and any law that says all you have to do is look at it is sort of that's what's given the bad guys so much revenue in selling these fake IDs. Until we get serious and say that we're going to make sure that there are tools out there that authenticate it and you have to use it, there's always going to be a market for these fakes.
I think you're so spot on that, a lot of these laws were written in like 1970 and haven't changed. And yeah, it's the 21st century today, and things are so different today than they were back in the 1970s and 1980s. When here in Massachusetts, there was like a revamp of the alcohol laws in the 1970s and 80s, and there really hasn't been much big stuff since. The standards. Here in Massachusetts, for example, you can accept anything that you want. I can draw a picture on a piece of paper, and you can choose to accept it as ID. Now, if you're wrong, if I'm under 21, you're screwed. That's my legal definition there. You're out of luck. Because it's not one of the 6 forms of ID that you can rely upon. But you can accept anything that you want. You don't even have to have an ID in Massachusetts. But you obviously elevate your risk in not checking an ID. And you really elevate your risk, do you not, in not having a software or a gatekeeping device like IntelliCheck?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think it's interesting, too. You mentioned at the beginning of the show sort of the big box retailers, the people that sell this. Many of them, they don't care. They're scanning, because we've spoken to a lot of them. And what I've always found, it's the local, establishments who care about their communities are the ones who seem to be at the forefront of we're going to do the right thing. And, by and large, they're our largest customers is, the local, I care about my community and I'm going to do the right thing. That's what works. That's who we work with most often.
Yeah, well, self-checkout, you don't get that in a local store. You get that at Target. And actually, you don't know this, Brian, but I actually have a bill this legislative session that bans self-checkout because it's ludicrous. There should not be self-checkout for alcohol sales. No. That's crazy.
No, not at all.
We also have a ballot question that we haven't played here in Massachusetts that incorporated that in and bans it too. And thank you, folks who have signed the ballot initiative, because we're over halfway there now. We got half the signatures. I'll talk about that another day. So, we've talked about some of the features which I think are really important. We're going to go to break in a second here. Maybe we can talk on this on both sides of the break, Brian. I want to touch on this issue because, again, being administrator of the beverage alcohol training course, I spent a lot of time on secondhand or second-party sales because I hate to say this, but this is the thing that is nailing stores is second-party sales. And, I tell folks, you've got to at least, upon a reasonable person's standard, try to prevent second-party sales from happening. And, one of the things that you're doing is, you're watching the person, if they've been to your store 4 times in the same day, why is somebody coming to your store 4 times in the same day? And what are they buying? You're not checking in IntelliCheck what a person's buying, but does the IntelliCheck help provide information about a person's visit?
We can. We're working on that too. There's certain things that we had built into the system to say, when we're working with stadiums, to say, well, you have a limit of, say, 6 drinks during the course of the football game or the baseball game or whatever. So that same, we could use that same technology to say that, oh, this person's been in here before today.
Exactly. Because I think that just, anything that wakes up the attendant is helping to prevent a disaster. And it's just such an important thing, because I say this, it's the second-party sale that can wipe out a store. I give people examples when I do the training course, and it's scary stuff that can happen. Second-party sale, to those who don't understand, is when you have a person who is legal because they're of age, who's intentionally buying to give the alcohol to minors. And you should have known it because it was so blatantly obvious. That's essentially a second-party sale, and it's a big problem in this state and across the country right now. A great example of second-party sales is where somebody is at the door accepting the alcohol that's coming in with a whole bunch of kids in the house that are going to get the alcohol. But that's a different story for another day. Brian, we need to go to break, and when we come back, let's talk about military IDs and some of the other stuff out there.
Sure.
Because that's another big problem for a lot of stores, is trying to figure that stuff out. But let's go to break first, and we'll be back after these quick messages.
When it comes to insurance, you can't put a price on peace of mind. At Donald J. Medeiros Insurance, peace of mind is the coverage that isn't mentioned in your policy. Since 1996, Donald J. Medeiros and his staff have been protecting your personal and commercial assets with the kind of personalized attention that you just can't find with a big box insurance company. Insurance is one of those things that you just don't appreciate until you need it. When you need it, you need Donald J. Medeiros Insurance on your side. Donald J. Medeiros Insurance at 154 Rhode Island Avenue. Call them today at 508-678-1271.
A new entity has taken over the Factory of Terror, celebrating its 25th year, bringing you new scares, new thrills, new terror, and never-before-seen frights. The Factory of Terror, 120 Pearl Street, Fall River, has plans for your dreams, or should we say, nightmares. Open now through October 31st. Go to factoryofterror.com for hours of operation and ticket prices. The Factory of Terror, where being scared has never been so much fun.
Attorney Carrero.
Yes, I'm calling because I really don't know where else to turn. I'm concerned because I'm not making my mortgage payments and my credit card payments are late, and I'm just really afraid of losing my home.
Well, first of all, you did the right thing calling a debt relief attorney. You do have options, and there are steps we can take to help give you a fresh start. Foreclosure may be avoidable. I'd be happy to meet with you and develop a plan going forward.
I'm so relieved to hear this.
Don't lose night after night of sleep worrying about mounting debt, the threat of foreclosure, wage garnishment, or the many other worrisome matters that relate to overwhelming debt. The law office of Chris Carrero specializes in debt settlement, foreclosure avoidance, and bankruptcy law. Attorney Chris Carrero has successfully represented clients in similar situations with excellent results. Put your worries into the skilled hands of attorney Chris Carrero and give yourself the peace of mind and relief you deserve. The law office of Chris Carrero is located at 1010 GAR Highway, Suite 12 in Swansea, 508-812-0210.
Final segment. I can't believe how fast this show goes. So, our guest is Bryan Lewis, who is the CEO of IntelliCheck. And, IntelliCheck is a system that a lot of stores across the state employ because it's really easy to use and it is very accurate. And, if you're not using some type of a gate tool then, as I've said so many times during so many trainings with so many stores across the state, you are opening yourself up to great risk. And it just takes one time, and you get caught with it, you're out. It's strict liability. You're out. You're closed. I mean, I've seen it. I've had to get lawyers for stores. I've seen the consequences. You don't want it. And then it's a question whether you're going to get your license back next year, because a local licensing authority doesn't have to give it back to you. It's a whole host of issues you just don't want. And why wouldn't you take some precautions to ensure it? And IntelliCheck definitely is one of the things that you can do. Your commercial. It's pretty good, huh?
Yeah, thanks, Rob.
Well, there's a reason for this, Brian. It's because stores, as you said in the last segment, are exceptional gatekeepers in preventing sales because they got a lot at stake. And it's a big distinguishing factor between the local store and some of these out-of-state chains or, some of these fulfillment companies. The store has everything to lose, and they do not want to lose it because it's their livelihood that's at stake here. Something that, confuses so many people when I teach the training course is military IDs. And there's a reason for this because, one, how often do you see a Space Force out there? Space Force out there, rather. There is no Space Force card, folks, just so that you know. But that's my point. You get a Space Force card, but there is a Space Force. I've driven by there. They have a branch, actually, out. If you drive out towards Bourne, there's a real Space Force. They got one of those Star Trek emblems in front of it. It threw me for a loop when I saw it. But, stores, how do you know what the ID for the Coast Guard looks like? And, how do you know? How do you distinguish? Because there's the old-style military ID card, there's the new-style military ID card, and there's the new-style military ID card. I mean, that's the beauty of military ID cards. But there are some things that are in the military ID card probably that are scannable. Are they not, Brian?
Yeah, that's exactly where we started. And what I would say is let's take it even beyond the military ID cards. Just in the continental U.S. alone, there are 250 valid formats of driver's licenses. So how do you know all of them? So you don't, with our tool, with the IntelliCheck app, you don't need to know because we know what that barcode for that state, that branch of the military on that issuance date, we know what it is supposed to be encoded in the barcode, inclusive of the hidden security features. And, we tell you, yes, no, or expired. So you don't have to look at it. You don't have to judge because, as you were talking, I was sitting here thinking, I don't even know what an Alaska license looks like. But if somebody came in, what do you do? So you either have to sort of gamble that you know what it looks like and you believe it, or you get a tool that's going to provide you, the certainty that the New York State DMV found. 1,000 out of 1,000, we caught every single one of them. And personally, I would rather have something I can fall back on and says that I'm using a tool that law enforcement uses, and several law enforcement agencies in Massachusetts, I'm relying on what they're relying on. So I'm doing my best. And I think that would, you were talking about how do you show compliance and making sure that you can prove you're doing the right thing. Having a third-party tool is probably the best way to do it.
Yeah. Now, what do you do when the person who comes in has a passport from Ireland? How do I know that's good?
Yeah, there's a couple. We can authenticate passports as well. Generally, that requires some sort of scanning device, but in very short order, we're bringing out the ability to, using a phone, because now, all the later version models of iPhone can do it. They can read the chip. And, a passport is a fairly simple thing to do. Yep. Scan the MRZ. Knowing what's in the MRZ, you unlock the chip in the passport, and then that speaks to the phone, and you can say that it is an actual real passport.
And actually, what's really nice, and I explain this to folks who take the course, we've now gotten to this point. If a passport, at least a U.S. passport, and pretty much almost every passport from out of this country, if it doesn't have a chip in it, probably not a valid passport. Just FYI exactly. On that one. Because we've now gotten to the point where all the old ones have circulated out. And, it's going to be there. it's definitely gonna be there. I'm just wondering, pickup. What are your suggestions on using IntelliCheck for doing, as we go into our last minute here, for doing at-home pickup? How would you want a store to be using your product to do that?
The delivery person should have the app on their phone and be checking at every single delivery. And as we said, they shouldn't just be dropping it off. I mean, it was really pretty scary, the amount of alcohol deliveries that, gifts I got from people sent to my house, just dropped off on the front porch, never even a doorbell ring. And they have no idea who they were delivering that to. That's a problem.
How do people learn more about IntelliCheck, Bryan?
Yeah, just go to our website, IntelliCheck.com. And there's a tab on there for age-restricted products, and they can see what we do. And just, if they're interested, just fill out the form, and we'll get right back to them. That's
good. And, we at MassPack, too, we have information that we provide out there, too. You go to our website, and it's there as well. It's amazing. We're done. Bryan, thank you for being our guest for the hour.
Thank you, Rob.